again. This is Linda Cooper and Thomas Neuhoff from Henry and Peters, and we are here to tell you a little bit more about the PPP loan and, more importantly, the updates from the PPP Flexibility Act that the President Trump signed on June 5th. And there is an interim final rule that the SBA put out yesterday that we also want to give you a little bit of update on. So just so you kind of know where we are, we're going to answer a few questions for you. So what were the primary changes in the PPP Flexibility Act?
Yeah, so the PPP Flexibility Act that Trump signed on June 5th made a number of changes for borrowers under the PPP program, and those changes by and large were all positive for borrowers. And the largest change there worth noting is that the covered period, which the covered period is just the time that a borrower has to spend the funds they received in their PPP application in accordance with the requirements to qualify for loan forgiveness. And so this covered period, this time they have to spend the money, was expanded from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. So you have a much longer time now, you and your small business do, to spend these funds in accordance with the program to qualify for loan forgiveness. This was kind of a change that was called for by small businesses, and Congress listened and thought, this is worth doing, expanding it, making it easier for businesses to qualify for loan forgiveness instead of having to crunch into 8 weeks. The other change that's worth noting is that any payments on this loan, principal and interest, are not going to be due until after the SBA issues their forgiveness rule on your specific loan. So you don't need to worry about making any payments to the bank in regards to these loans right now.
So what did this act not do for us?
So there's a number of rumors going around about what Congress wants to do, what's been proposed, and what businesses are calling for around the country. We thought it would be worth taking a minute to clarify what this act has not done and what has not happened yet. So one important thing to clarify is that the amount of the PPP loan cannot be increased at this time. So if you've already received a PPP loan, this act does not provide additional funds or the ability to apply for another PPP loan. The only thing that this act does is treat the forgiveness and make it easier to qualify for forgiveness. So there are funds still available out there if you have not applied for a PPP loan, but as far as those who have already applied, no additional funds are currently available. The other thing that this act did not do is lay down blanket forgiveness for businesses, and so there were talks that businesses with loans under a certain amount might be eligible to receive blanket forgiveness, and this act did not do that as well.
So I'm assuming this act probably did not address all of the questions that everyone has, or there's still things we're not sure about?
There's a number of questions. In fact, the act actually probably raises more questions than it does provide answers. And so one of those big questions is for how the treatment of owner employees and self-employed individuals and partners and partnerships are going to be treated under this rule. Previously, their pay was capped at 8/52 of $100,000 or the applicable amount from 2019. And now that 8-week period is expanded to 24 weeks, we're not quite sure how that's going to apply to owner employees and how the Treasury is going to interpret that. So that's something to stay tuned and seek out. The other thing that we're not sure about is how the election will be filed by borrowers who choose the 8-week period. So borrowers, even though the covered period now by default is 24 weeks, borrowers can elect to choose an 8-week period if they received their loan before June 5th. And so important to note that the loan covered period cannot be 10 weeks or 16 weeks. It's either going to be 8 weeks by election or 24 weeks by default. And so the only other thing I think worth mentioning is that the eligibility as far as this loan is concerned has not changed. And so all of those rules still apply. The main changes here are on the forgiveness side. And one other thing we're staying tuned on is how the reduction in full-time equivalency and the salary and wage payments are going to apply for this expanded 24-week period, and how the SBA is going to look at that. And so with that, we will be back with more updates as they're provided, and you can always check with us on henryandpeters.com, and we'll be sure to update you there. Thanks so much.